because I wanted to get out of there. But I didn't. I walked to the front of the car and leaned up against the hood. Now, these things are in back of me now. I got my back at them, and they're just still screaming and hollering and really carrying on. But I thought that this is it. I'm staying. I don't care if they tear me apart. I'm staying here.
In this episode, I talked to Ronald Ronnie Roseman from Oregon about some of the most incredible encounters I've experienced so far on Bigfoot Society. What did Ronnie experience in that remote Oregon meadow? If you only listen to one more episode of Bigfoot Society, make this the one. Thanks for listening. All right, Bigfoot Society, we got the privilege of talking to Mr. Ronnie Roseman tonight. He's from the Pacific Northwest. He's got years of Bigfoot experience. And how are you doing tonight, Ronnie?
I'm doing fine, yeah. A long time since I've been ready.
Yeah, it's like the new version of radio in a way. It's a lot of fun. Let's start at the beginning, Ronnie. So tell me, what was it that first got you into Bigfooting years ago?
I don't know. I've always been weird. As a kid, I just was always attracted to mysteries, unexplained things, and phenomena and stuff. And at a very early age, I think it was 4th, 5th grade, I got a book called Stranger Than Fiction by Frank Edwards, I believe it was. I read that and had something in there about the abominable snowman. I got interested in that. I think it was 8. And then I was telling an aunt I lived in Southern California at the time. And I had an aunt that lived in Eureka, which was 800 miles away, California. And she knew about me being interested in abominable snowman. So it was during the time that the road construction Northern California, Bluff Creek area was going by Ray Wallace there. And she saved all the clippings for me on the Bigfoot, because that's when that's where the name of Bigfoot originated, the Bluff Creek area during 1958, I think it was, or 59. Okay. Yeah. So Jerry Cooney was seeing the tracks around his bulldozer. It went to the newspaper and Humboldt or whatever it was there, Eureka, and then the picture was on. Anyway, she saved all the newspaper clippings for me, and I didn't know it. So when she came down for Christmas, I got that as a Christmas present. So I got interested in Bigfoot at that time. I think I was 9 years old. So that was my beginning.
You were around 9 to 10 in the late 50s. Wait, what I'm hearing there.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So you were at an interesting age when the Patterson-Gimlin film was released. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. 67. I think I was about 17 years old. See, how old was I at that time? 60. That was 67, right?
It was 67. Yeah, you would have been 16 or 17 years old. Yep.
Yeah, that's when I really got motivated. I guess a lot of people did. That you could look at it even at that age, and I didn't know anything, and I still don't know anything about these things. But looking at that, movement and stuff, and just the way it moved, you could tell that it looked like something was there, even though your family's looking at you weird. But yeah, that's when I really got motivated. So that's when I ordered a tranquilizer gun. And I paid $500 for it, got it in the mail. I had these big dreams about shooting one of these things in the rear end after seeing that picture. Someday I'm going to get out there, and thought about doing something like that. And of course, I had a problem with tranquilizer, a drug or something. What would you use? Would you want something for apes And I never did think that these things were apes myself, even though a lot of friends have thought that. John Green, Dr. Krantz, and great people, but I just didn't see that with a human like footprints and stuff, which is the most obvious, the first thing. So I decided to go with something with sertraline, and then I went around to pharmacists and stuff. I didn't know where to go and try to get something like that, and I was asking around to get it, and most of the pharmacists, they said, no, well, we can't get you that. We can't do that, or we can't get that, or whatever. This one pharmacist said, yeah, he says, that's for tranquilizing people or whatever. And then he said, yeah, maybe I can help you out and give me your information. I didn't do that. I got scared. I left. And I realized that, my gosh, I didn't want to tell him I wanted to. Oh, I think I did tell him. I think I told him what you wanted for. Said something about I wanted to tranquilize Bigfoot, and I think that gave me a weird look. I left. I dropped that project, that idea, which I found out later wouldn't work anyway. But anyway, so trial and error from the beginning.
That is amazing. So was this in Southern California that this all took place then?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. What a story. That's amazing. Oh, man.
Thank you. I thought maybe it might sound kind of dumb.
No, it's awesome. These are the kind of stories that my listeners absolutely love. Did you first see the film then I know it was shown in movie theaters a lot. Did you see it in a movie theater then?
No, I didn't. You know something? I don't remember. I think it was on TV.
During that time period, so you were getting into your almost 20 in that time period right after the PG film. Did you seriously go out and start looking at that time besides trying to get the...
No, I did not. Not at all. That come at a much later date. I'd read a little bit about these things, and I'm kind of easy anyway, and I'm certainly not really an outdoorsman or anything like hunter or anything. I did a lot of hiking, but it wasn't for looking for monsters. But I got to thinking about it, and what I did find out about it, Peter Byrne, he's the first guy I contacted sometime in the mid-70s or something, but I realized Bob Titmus, he never seen one that I know. Anyway, Peter Byrne didn't, John Green didn't, and Dr. Krantz didn't. And I thought, my God, you could get out to get a chance to even get this glimpse of one of these things at a distance, much less close up. You could search all your life. And I just thought it wasn't feasible to go out for what the time that was involved and everything else. And not that they're not out there, but I was learning a little bit by the time I was in my 20s. And I opted to collect snakes and stuff, and I did that for many years. Went all over the United States, down the Everglades, and different places. I always had these things in my mind. But I figured I'm collecting snakes. To run across one of them, that'll be a plus, but not likely. And so I didn't get into it till my real, what I could call an expedition, was after I had gone acquainted with a lady. It was in the 90s, and late 90s. And by that time I knew Richard Greenwell of the International Society of Cryptozoology. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I have heard of the society.
Okay, he was the secretary, and Dr. Roy Mackel was the vice president, and Bernard Heuvelmans was the president. And that was it. They established that, founded that, the Smithsonian. They were legit guys. And so me and Richard, we did a lot of field research, but it didn't start till 98. And in 99, I went with him on, it was the second expedition that he had in the Siskiyous. And the first expedition that he had was with him, Dr. Mildrum, and a fellow by the name of Mark Slack. He was the guide. And then Darwin, which was Richard's son. He didn't, 2 years, that was in 1997. And I think it's in Dr. Mildrum's book. He's got it in there, which was interesting. Of course, this was long before his book came out, but he tells what happened there when he was on the team back in there, and that they were camped in a meadow where these things came in there at night, and they were running in between their tents and stuff. They had stole their oatmeal, and they had it down in the bags, and these things took it out. They didn't make a mess like a bear would. And they heard him running back and forth, and Dr. Meldrum was sitting in his tent, and he said one of them actually hit the guide wire or something and jerked his tent running through there. But anyway, the next morning they checked it out, and the tracks were there. It was biped in the grass. Nothing you could cast, but the indentations of where they had been that come in during the night. Richard was using call blasting and stuff. So anyway, that was 97. Then Richard asked me if I wanted to go on the next one, which was 1999. And we went in June and July, I think it was. But it's only a window frame to get in there. It's just snow and stuff most of the year. It's only a couple of months that are really safe to get back in there. It's about 40 miles back in from Orleans and the canyon. It was a heck of a trip. We had the horses, 500 pounds of equipment and food supplies and thermal imaging and everything else. And so we got back there and there were some results. And we call blasted in the canyons in the evening with what's purportedly Bigfoot screams and stuff like that. We had babies and howler monkey sounds and baby sounds, humans and stuff. And we split up. There was the main camp, base camp, was Richard and his son. And then me and Angelo Caparella, he was a biologist from the University of Chicago. We camped out about a mile away from there. Our camp was. And Angelo he couldn't handle my snoring, so he went 100 feet down the mountain somewhat, and I was by myself there, and something was coming around. And I'm going to say this because it's important. It has something to do with something that happened in my area recently. Now, this was 1999 in Siskiyou, Northern California, when this was going on. And after the call blasting one evening, I stepped out of the tent to relieve myself, and I heard something snap, a twig snap. And right on the other side of it was a big canyon. But anyway, I heard it, and that's all I heard. But we had to shoot a bear. I think it was just 4 or 5 days before. That was stalking us, and actually was going to charge us. We didn't have any choice. So I was thinking bear, and I got back in my tent. I knew something was. I felt that something big was there, and I had a pistol and mace, and I felt somewhat comfortable with that. Anyway, went through the night. Nothing happened. The next night, that same time of night, about 1 o'clock in the morning, I step out. I hear the twig snap, same area. Of course, it's pitch black, but I get back in the tent. We'd hike back to the base camp and have breakfast in the morning. And I told Richard, he's the team leader, and he had all the equipment and night equipment and everything, and thermal imaging and night equipment, infrared. But I said, you guys are to set this stuff around my tent. I think something's coming around there. And at this point, I wasn't thinking Bigfoot. I was thinking bear. But he said, yeah, maybe we should do that. They talked to her. They didn't want to do it right then. They wanted the equipment where they were at. So the third night, I got out at the same time, heard the twig snap, and I got back in the tent. And I had, of course, done recon all around there before I set my tent up there, and I wanted it as secure as possible. So I had set it up next to undergrowth, some shrubbery, thick brush and stuff on one side of it. And then right behind it, there was a log that was bowed, and not a log, but a limb. But it was bowed up just like a guard for a car if you were in a park right in front of him. It was just bowed up just perfectly, went across level and then came back down. And I had stood on that before I set my tent up there. And I jumped on it. I was 165 pounds, and I didn't budge it, so it was solid. So I had that behind me. That's where my head was, where I slept. So this third night, when I heard that twig, I think right from that area, there was an animal trail that went all the way back and came back around right behind my tent. So I think whatever it was there, it did that. But it was sometime during the night, I heard that branch or that big tree part just going, like it was going down, making a noise. And I couldn't budget jumping on it, so something heavy was pushed on. It was right behind my head. And then it went, and it went, but started, I could tell it was going back up, so something didn't want to make any noise. And then right on the side of me, the right-hand side of the tent, right after that, I heard this, excuse me, don't jump, but I got to trying to give you an idea. I heard only 10 times worse, 10 times louder. So that, of course, it made me, that was unnerving, and I didn't know what to think of that. And I thought something was going to come through my tent. So I sit there Indian style all night with my pistol in one hand and mace in the other. Nothing happened. And it was years later. There's a lot more on that expedition, but I want to make a point because at least something happened there that got me in trouble many years later, like within the last couple of years here. I'm in Oregon right now, Central Oregon, surrounded by mountains and woods. And that sound, there was a few years after that with a friend of mine. I was over at his house, Redmond Nealis Jr. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Bigfootology, he had established. But anyway, I was over at his house, and I had never heard the Ron Moorhead tapes. I didn't know anything about them, the Sierra Sounds. And I came off with that sound, and I was telling him the same story that was years ago. And he says, he looked at me and says, I don't think you, because I was still thinking bear. I don't know anything about bears. Not that maybe I don't know, it sounded awful, scary for a bear to come up like Earl Ruff. But he says, my friend says, I don't think he's seen a bear. And he played me the Moorhead tapes. Sierra Sound. It was about the third one in with the aggressive sound. And it is almost an exact. And I think, holy heck, maybe, yeah. I think one of those things was standing by my tent. I don't think he liked me being there. It was aggressive for sure. So many years later, coming up to now, I was introduced in an area by a hunter and, to somebody else that knew I was interested in Bigfoot. But anyway, I got up in this area and right off the bat, we started having things happening. And my gosh, that's probably an hour, 2-hour talk right there and all that stuff. So I'm just going to keep to the point here for now. That sound, after knowing these things over here, we had to come in different areas and whistle from both sides, communicate or whatever, camping. Everything was fine. And this friend of mine is named Dwayne. He's a rugged old hunter. I don't think he's afraid of much. He's been charged by grizzly bears twice, and it didn't bother him. And he knew these things were up here, but people didn't believe him. And anyway, I was introduced to him, and I wanted to go up with him. Nobody had ever went up with him. I did. And we had action. It was going on. Everything was fine. And then one evening we were there, we're camping in this meadow area. It's a good, pretty high elevation. It's back in a ways. And I was sitting in my chair, sipping on a beer, and him and his dad, we had grandpa there too. And they went to lay down in the tent. It was getting dusk. And I was sitting outside of the tent in the chair, and I asked him what kind of sounds, because he's been up there camping there and hunting mostly by himself for over 40 years, and knowing those things over there. And over 40 years, he only got to see one once, and it was from about 300 feet. And only one time with him being there all the time, so it gives you an idea. But I asked him, I said, what kind of sounds you heard over the years, whatever? You come out with something, whatever. And so I said, I'm going to share a sound with you that I heard one time. So I came off with the one I just was trying to come out with you. And if you hear that Ron Moorhead's tape, Sierra Sounds or whatever, about the third one is it. But I did that. and pretty loud. And I was just sitting there drinking beer, and about 15 minutes later, 20 minutes or whatever, we heard these things coming from a distance, a long distance, just hollering and raising hell and screaming. Something was very agitated, and there was more than one, and they were coming our way. But Dwayne knew exactly what it was coming, and I said, ooh, I said, any of those sounds, because these things, a couple of them are coming off like crazy, agitated chimpanzees, and another one was coming off sounding like a mad owl, and another one was coming off like a coyote, and another one like a raven. And all of them were going at the same time, and they're headed our way, and they're getting louder. And so I asked him, they were still in the tent, and I said, you ever hear anything like that? He said, yeah, no, not quite like that. And I said, yeah, we know what they were. And I said, I think this is a premiere of the coming attraction. And I got in the tent pretty quick with them. There was just enough room for the three of us. And they're coming. They're getting louder. By the time they got to where we're at, it was totally dark. And they came, we could hear them coming in, circling in the back of the meadow, coming around just within the tree line. And they came directly behind our tent, and just for an hour and a half, they terrorized us. We actually didn't think we were going to live through the night. It was so bad. There's no way to explain it, how intense it really was. But the two of them coming off like chimpanzees, and crazy chimpanzee and the other animal sounds. And you could tell they were running back and forth. And one of them was charging, thump, 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 right up heavy, and just running right up to the tent. And then it'd run back. And it did that every once in a while. They did it for about an hour and a half. And every time the one that was charging, you braced for impact, because you felt like he was going to come and take the tent and you with it and just go right on through. That's what it felt like. But it would stop on a dime right at the edge. It sounded like right there at the edge of the tent before it came through, then run back. Yeah, that was a pretty terrifying night. And I wish that I could document that. It would be something, but I can't. But anyway, they ended up going around the other side and did a complete circle, actually. And went back around and went back out the same way. And you could hear them keep going until they started fading out. Well, they were fading out until you couldn't hear them anymore. And that was a while. So anyway, they scared the Jesus out of us. And what's interesting, that one of the things that is that the day before, we were doing our recon around there, and we seen a track of one, but it was a smaller track. It was probably about 12 inches, maybe a little less. But you could see the impression, what it was, and it was going a certain way, and there was a tree right there too. It looked like it, and a little pathway like. And that's when I said, let's get some food and put it in that tree. I hadn't tried putting food up. And I thought, oh gosh, I had that perfect tree that set fruit up and stuff. So we went to town and we got bananas, and we put them out and put them on the tree. And next morning, we went out and checked, and those tracks were coming from the tree, and the bananas were gone. And there was no scraps underneath the tree or anything. Something had taken the bananas. So that's why we set up our camp right there. I said, "Go set our camp up here." So we did. So that evening, that happened. And of course, they were anxious to get out of there. The grandpa, he never said a word or said anything. None of us were really talking. Not till it was over with, they were leaving. And the lesson of the story is a funny one, but I'm going to skip it for now. But next morning, everybody was in our room. As soon as it got daybreak, we were ready to go. But we were standing there for a little bit talking, because I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on. We'd been going in there, and we know they were coming around, and we hadn't had any problems. And they just went ballistic, crazy this night. And I was telling Dwayne, I said, my God, I wonder what happened. Why did they do that? And I'm thinking, because I was telling him that the younger one took the bananas, it looked like, from the tracks. He might have taken them back to the old man, and the old man might have got pissed off at us for giving his kid some food. I'm just trying to figure it out. And then he says, no. And this guy is a seasoned hunter. He's been all over, a big game hunter. He said, no. He said, they were here for you. I feel the shivers, the chills go right down my neck. I said, here for me? Why? What? He says, last night, he said, when you come up with that sound, he says, in 20 minutes, they were headed here. He says, they came here for you. I thought, oh, shit. But so anyway, we left. And I did go back, and I took him home. And I went back only because I had a friend that's a Bigfoot hunter, happened to be in the house there, Don Monroe. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he was at my house. He came from Montana, just happened to be here when I came here that day after the camp out there. And he's a big-time big hunter. He's 80 years old, and he's still going at it. He's quite a fellow. But I told him, and he said, go up there. Hell, I didn't want to go back. I was still freaking nervous. Well, I took him back up there, and we walked around on him, and I found a scene where they came in. It was like they just leveled the brush and everything. There wasn't anything. A big pathway. It must have been 4 feet wide where they came in and went through around. But it was too hard to see any really distinguishable tracks, but it was all messed up, scratched. You could tell where the footprints were back and forth, nothing to cast. It was hard ground. But on the other side where they went out, I found 2 tracks in softer areas. And the first one I seen was, I measured it by breaking a stick off. I didn't have any tape or measuring stuff. I broke a stick off and measured it later. But this one track was 15 inches and close to 9 inches. It was 18 inches long, close to 9 inches like at the ball, and close to 7 inches at the heel. And not far from that, there was another track. And then it stepped right down where it was soft foliage or grass or green. I don't know what you call this stuff. But anyway, it was heavy. And it was spongy-like material underneath the canopy. And a soft, moist ground right in this area. And this thing had stepped right there and right down there, right down to the roots. You see the root system and stuff. I jumped on it and the area right there at the track. And I jumped. And it just like a sponge. It went down, but it came back up. Just whatever, it was so heavy, it went right down and laid the bare roots. And the track was 23 inches long and about 9.5 inches wide and 7 inches at the heel. So that was the big daddy guy. And that's the one I guess I pissed off. Dwayne had said that he wasn't going to ever go back. He'd been hunting over there over 40 years with him, never was bothered. But that really did it for him. And pretty much me too. And about a month later, I wanted to go back up there. And I went by and I asked him, so let's go up there and let's just go. And I said, Dwayne, it's daytime. It's summertime. It's in the afternoon. It's hot. I said, they're going to be out sleeping somewhere. I said, I wouldn't worry about it. Let's go up there. Let's just go. And I talked him into it. And his daughter came along, the one that introduced me to him. And we went up there. And are you still with me?
Yes, Ronnie, I'm letting you talk because this is amazing. I'm doing my best trying not to ask questions, but this is amazing.
I'm so used to somebody interrupting me or taking off or doing something like that.
It's taken me years to get to the point not to interrupt people.
But I hope the guy didn't hang up and think this is so much bullshit that he just put it.
You're good, sir.
So anyway, it's all true. I don't sit around and make stuff like this up. In fact, I take the subject too seriously to do that. So we went up there, and I'm thinking, of course, I was a little nervous going back, but I thought, no, these things they'll be sleeping somewhere. And I really convinced myself of that. And we got up there and parked right not far from the meadow. And I had my car. They took theirs. His daughter took the Jeep. They drove in that, and I had my little green car. And we were parked right there on the access road, right next to the meadow. I was back in the meadow a little bit. And we were there, and if you hear some animals or birds chirping or something, you're usually okay. There's a pretty good sign they're not there, unless you want them to be there. If it's completely silent, that's a good sign that they're probably around. But these little birds were chirping on the other side of the meadow. It's a pretty good sized meadow, about 100 feet across or more, the front. And little birds, chirp, chirp, chirp. I sound like little finches or something. But I'm hearing the birds, and I'm looking at the daughter. She's staring over that area. She's a pretty smart girl. Nobody said anything. I'm looking over that way, too. She starts chirping. And then she's got like a pattern, chirp, kind of like a pattern coming from the little birdie over there, too. And it changed. It was different. The chirping, I'm not sure. She walks over there. It was about 60 feet. And when she got within 15 feet, the little birdie started picking up and chirping, getting excited. Maybe birds can get excited, somebody walking towards them. But she didn't go any further. And still nobody saying anything. We're just watching. And she turned around and walked back to us, me and her dad. And they were really going crazy. And then something else was happening. Two squirrels came off about that time off the distance. And towards the bottoms, what is called the bottoms. And it's a fascinating area. That's the first place we camped out. When I went up there, I thought it was a good place. It's about an hour's hike down in there, and it's like the old growth and stuff, and creek and cabbage, and you can tell, and part of it's swamp, and the other. I mean, a perfect place for those things. That's where we stayed the first night, and we actually had two of them that night. That was long before this deal, and you have to keep up with me if you can, because I get sidetracked sometimes. But I'm going to get back to what I was saying. But that first night, we had them whistle for both sides. The next morning, we figured what it was. Next morning, we knew going out of the bottoms, starting to hike, because the rocks were hitting the trees ahead of us as we were going out. So that confirmed what it was. But that's when it was okay. We weren't having a problem. Now it's changed. Now we're there, got the daughter, and she's back, and two squirrels, the bottoms that are in the direction of the bottoms, they're going off crazy. And Dwayne said, and he knows his wildlife from the worms right on up. But he said, something's coming this way. And it wasn't just right after he said that. We could hear him coming. It was the same frickin' sounds that night. Now, this is 3:00 in the afternoon. And they're coming. That crazy chimpanzee sounds, and the wolf sound, or the coyote rather, and the raven and owl. All the five of them. I counted 5. Dwayne thought there was a lot more than that, but I'm going by the sounds. I thought there was 5. But they're heading away, getting louder and louder, just like the night, except this is daytime. And they knew we were there. And it's like, this second time they're going to have to frickin' warn us, you know. But they come up there, and the undergrowth on the other side of the meadow was probably about 100 feet away. And they came up to that. You could tell they were right there, screaming and hollering. It sounded like surround sound, amplified and echoing. It's just so loud. But they weren't coming out in the open. They were right there and screaming and hollering. And Dwayne asked his daughter, he said, "Do you want to leave?" Because she was pacing back and forth. And she said, "Yeah." And they got in the car and left. He asked me, he said, "You coming?" I don't know why, but I said, "No, I'm going to stick around a little bit." And I'm not a brave person. I don't know why I do some things. I can't believe why I do some things. But anyway, they left, and that was a lonely feeling, watching her black Jeep going on out the dirt road, woods on both sides of that. And then I'm hearing these things are screaming and hollering, and it's me, I guess they want, and I'm staying. which sounds crazy. And I'm looking at my car. It's about 20 feet away, and it's pointed in a direction that is a dead end on that road. So I get in and I have to turn around. And I got a pretty good idea of these things from reports. These things can move. They're quick. They want you. They're going to get you. I'm thinking, my gosh, I don't want them to have to think about it. They might just change in that car, getting in there and turning around, take a little time. I don't like it, but I start walking towards the car because the closer to it I am, the safer I feel. And as I'm walking towards it, it's like I got two voices in my head. One saying, "Get the hell out of here, run, go," and the other one saying, "No, if you go, you're going to kick yourself in the butt the rest of your life. This is why you're here." And it just kept going back and forth as I'm walking towards the car because I wanted to get out of there. But I didn't. I walked to the front of the car and leaned up against the hood. Now, these things are in back of me now. I got my back at them, and they're just still screaming and hollering and really carrying on. And I was determined that one voice, whatever it was, won out. But I thought, this is it. I'm staying. I don't care if they tear me apart. I'm staying here. And as soon as I thought that, I'm not really into the spine speak stuff, but it was almost like, as soon as I thought that, I'm staying here, even if they tear me apart. As soon as I thought that, another sound joined in with them. And it was the most hideous, deep, gurgling growl. I like straight from hell or something. And it was loud. It's just as loud as them. And they were so loud already. And it was just a growl. Because and it just went up. And as soon as I heard that, because this fella sounded real serious, I was already bad enough. And when that joined in, I thought, I changed my mind. And I walked around slowly to my car and opened the door. And they're still going. But as soon as I sat down, I hadn't even closed the door yet. It was silence. They all shut up. And which I knew right then they accomplished what they wanted. So I drove out of there slow, turned around, got the car turned around and drove back out. I had to be within probably 60 feet of them or something back in there in the brush. I had the windows down. It went slow. Didn't hear a thing. You wouldn't know that anything was there. And I yelled out the window on the way out. I said, "I love you." I don't know why I did that. But I went out in there. I thought, whoa, boy, that's it. My Bigfoot days are over. And I thought, I'm content. I don't need it. I don't need that. That's just too much. And I went back home and I was glad to be relieved because I don't want to go. But then again, it started bothering me. And I thought, holy shit. I'm just thinking about it. I can't get it off my mind. And it's like a loose end or something. I'm leaving something. And I didn't feel good about it. But I'm terrified to go back. And I ain't got nobody to go with me either. I'm alone. And I just wanted to go back. But I'm not going to go back, especially, and push the envelope. 2 stern warnings, at least. One, at least you thought, that first time you really thought you were going to die. And these things can scare the hell out of you. They can terrify you. It's no wonder. I believe that. And I've interviewed a lot of people over the years, and military people that have been through this and been through combat without fail. Somebody that's had combat and had an experience with it, just seeing them, I don't think as bad as what we went through, have said that this is more frightening or more terrorizing than being in a war. And I know where they're coming from, at least with this experience. But anyway, I'm laying here and I thought, I felt guilty too, because Dwayne had told me, he says, I never had a problem with them until I brought you up here. And I'm thinking, my gosh, this is awful. And it took me 2 weeks laying on my back and thinking about it. And I thought, my God, I want to go back. And going to take a lot. They have to have a reason. I thought, God, I wonder if I could change it around. If I could change it around and get them back where they're not pissed off and agitated, maybe that would be worth a try. That's the only way I would go back if there was a chance. And I thought of it, gosh, I'll go back with the food. They wouldn't touch that food either. That they walked by those bananas. We had fresh, put bananas back up in there after the younger one had taken them. And this thing went in that night, and they passed that tree up twice. They was going in and coming back out. And they didn't touch no bananas. They didn't want them. That's how pissed they were. But so anyway, I thought about it, and I thought, God, it's really simple. The best way is music, right? I'll get some stuff maybe and go back and put some food up in the tree. But this time I'll take a guitar and sing a little bit. And it took me a while. I don't know what it was after I thought of that, how many days I sat and thought about it. And I was terrified to even think about it, doing it. But one morning I did it. I just got up and I just said, I'm doing it. I'm going. And I went by the supermarket and I got some fruit and stuff. And I went up there, put it in the tree. I had a chair and a six-pack and my guitar. And I put the food up in the chair. And the tree is back in away from the access road, about 100 feet. So when I'm putting the food up, it takes 10 or 15 minutes, put it all through the tree. And I looked back, and that would have been my worst nightmare. I was thinking, oh, my God, I hope doing this, I don't look back and when I'm standing there by my car or in between me and the car and have a heart attack. But it didn't happen. So I did that, and I did it before I got in. I was doing it for 3 months. But there was about 3 weeks in between that I didn't because a bear had caught on, and he just made a mess of everything, getting the food and containers I had and everything. And I stayed away for over a week, hoping he'd go away by then, come back, and he had been gone. A couple of days later, he came back in. So I stopped it for another 2 weeks. Then I started putting the food back up, doing my thing and singing and playing the guitar. All together with all this, and sometimes the fruit or whatever I'd have there, it would totally rot twice. It rotted and go back up there, and it's all sudden, and nothing touched it. That happened twice within that 3 months, and I don't know why that happened. Maybe somebody out there may know, but the rest of the time, the other animals, the critters, the ravens, the birds, and squirrels, or whatever, would get the food, apples or whatever. But they always left droppings and food parts or whatever, banana peels or the end of it or whatever. There was always a mess, no matter what got into them. After doing that, like I said, 3 months, I was persistent at it, and I was just scared to death every time I headed out of here to drive up there, but I did it anyway. And this one day, I go by and get some food and take it back up. And nothing was happening up there. Boy, the second time we went up there, it didn't take them long to know we were there in the daytime and coming after us. Here I am. I've been there for almost 3 months, and there was some silent times there, but no activity, no sounds, no nothing. So I don't know. I'm sure those things, this is an established area. There's no doubt about that. And I'm sure they were there at some time during that 3 months. And yet I don't know, they must have been sit back and maybe watching me and watching this crazy fellow that came back after threatening to kill me twice. Maybe they thought I was crazy, wanted to study me. I don't know, but nothing happened. No sounds, no anything. But anyway, towards the end of the 3rd month, I went by the supermarket and I thought, I don't know if this had anything to do with it. It's coincidence. I don't think it did. I think something happened anyway, but I got some fruit and I got some bananas. Oh, and I was taking up peanut butter at that time too, peanut butter sandwiches. But I had gotten a blackberry cobbler, a half of one. And I had it in a container, a clear container where you could see through it, and it snapped on the sides like a pie container. You've seen them. They're clear. You can see through them, and they snap on the side. But so I took it all up there, and I put the bananas, peanut butter through the limbs and tied some of the food and stuff up from the bottom and the top. And on the cobbler, I put it in a cloth bag, shopping bag. It was cloth. a heavy duty cloth, and I put the cobbler container with the cobbler in it about 8 feet up on a limb. And I sit there for about 20 minutes, or 100, about 70 feet from the tree, and played some songs and sang, drank 1 or 2 beers, and I packed up and left out of there. The next morning I come back and I'm walking to the tree. I see I had a dozen bananas around the tree. They weren't there. I could tell that when I'm approaching the tree, they weren't there. And I'm looking down at the ground. There's no mess. All these other animals have always made a mess, no matter what it was, or left part of something. There's no mess. It's clean. And I'm thinking, oh, that's a good sign. And now I'm looking at that bag with the cobbler in it. I take it down and look at it. And the container's still in the bottom, but the cobbler is gone. And the bottom of the container is clean. So I can only imagine maybe something licked it clean. And it was snapped back shut. And it was still in that bag up there. Woohoo. They started taking the food. And I drove back to town to tell Dwayne. I said, Dwayne, you got to come up. I said, you just got to come up. I want your opinion on this. And I took him up there, and I put the bag up 8 feet. I took it down and showed him, told him no scraps around here and all that. And I look at that. This is clean in here. This container's clean. And what really got him, that it had been snapped back. And he told me, he said, yeah, I don't know. He says, I don't know if anything could have done that. And I knew I was successful at that point on that. I took him back. I put some more food up. I put 12 apples up after that. And I went back up by myself. And every time I'd really have to get my nerve up to go back up there. But I went up there next day, and I could tell walking up to the tree, the apples are gone. And I'm looking around, there's no scraps. And oh boy. And I'm looking, there's one apple on the lowest limb that I put one down below, and it's right there. There was one apple and it hadn't been touched. And I don't know, but I'm thinking, hey, might have been kind of like a peace offering. We're good. At least that's the way I wanted to think of it. And so I did a little singing thing, and I left. Did the same thing, repeated, come back, gone. No sounds, no nothing. And did my little sing thing, left. I come back, I think it was about the 4th time, but I come back, and now I'm sitting there. I put the food up, and I go sit in my chair and sip on a beer and start playing. And now I'm hearing whoop. I'm hearing the whoops and little high-pitched sounds and stuff, and back in the woods a little bit. And I thought, oh boy, I did it. I'm thinking I did it, but I'm still nervous. I'm scared. I'm not really thinking it that way till the next time. And I know it's these things back in there for the whoops and stuff. And just like the sound you hear that people say they've recorded and the whooping. So now I'm hearing it for the second time. And it just dawned on me. I succeeded in what I wanted to do to turn it around. And I don't know why I didn't think that before, but I didn't. And all of a sudden it hit me, and it's like 100 pounds of weight just went right off my shoulders and stress and stuff. And so it was all right. It was great. And it felt good. It was comfortable. It's a pretty amazing feeling to be connected in some way to something like that. It's just, it's hard to explain, like connecting with another world or something. And on a friendly basis too. Gosh, what a feeling. But so I did my thing. I drive out of there, and I don't know why. And I had it happen a lot. It kept going back, and they were there waiting for me. But I was scared every morning. I had all I could do to get my nerve up. Even though it had been pleasant, it was still nerve-wracking to go back. Once I was there and they were doing their thing and I was playing and singing, it was fine. But I was always scared the next morning to go up, and I don't know why, but I was. But so it was really interesting. I had done it, I changed it around, and God, what a feeling. So I'm glad I didn't sit on my ass the rest of my life wondering about it. So I did that, and it really got interesting. But I still didn't want to go by myself. And I wanted company or somebody to witness something. And there's a fella, big guy, works out. He's a Mexican fella. And he's been to prison and all this stuff. But he's actually a good guy. I like him as a friend. But he's not into this Bigfoot or stuff or anything in the woods or whatever. But he knew what I was doing. I thought he lives at the edge of town before I start off on the road to go back up there. And I want to drop by just for the hell of it and see if he wants to go because I wanted company. And he surprised me. He said, yeah, I'll go with you. So he did. Now, this stuff had been happening with me. So now I'm taking him up there. And we get right to this place, right by the meadow, go right and close. The tree's not too far from there. As soon as we pull in, as soon as we got out of the car, I'm ahead of him walking towards the tree, and he's behind me. And those things started off with whipping and stuff, but a little more aggressive. There was some stomping and a little bit, it was just a little bit different and maybe a little intimidating, and especially somebody that never experienced anything. And I looked back at him, and his eyes were ready to bulge right out, and the look in his face was priceless. He said, I think I want to go. And I said, Sal, it's just getting started. I want to go. So I had to take him out there. But I did that a couple of times. I took another fellow up there sometime in between. It wasn't very often, but I could find someone to go. But he walked back in there a little bit. Big stomp on the ground and a smell. I never ever smelled anything with him, but this guy did. And he was a hiker, hiked the mountains and stuff, never had any experience. He didn't want to come back either. I took him, the one that was really interesting, a third guy I took back up there. He used to live here in this small town. He hunted elk and deer and stuff. He was a hunter. And he was interested in Bigfoot. I had a bear too. But he was interested in Bigfoot. I talked to him about it when he lived here. And he was just intrigued with it, but he had never seen the evidence. Hunted here for 13 years. And he got divorced, so he went to New York where he's got family. But he comes out here about once a year and spends a few days and visits with some family, his kid and stuff. But anyway, he was out here. He gave me a call, and he wanted to spend a day with me before he went back to New York. I said, yeah, it'd be great. So he came over. I didn't tell him anything yet. And when he showed up, I said, hey, I think I know where Bigfoot's at. And he got excited. And I thought, that's great. So we went up there. I always thought that these things knew because they were there waiting for me when we had this going. And I figured they knew when I was coming because of my car. If I remember right, I think that we took his van and we were up there, and probably maybe 10 minutes before the area that I stopped at where the tree is and the meadow. I mean, it's all woods and mountain there. You can't see, and it's a ways away yet. And we're driving up there towards it, and I got the food and everything, but I hadn't heard the sound up there yet. I did hear it in the Siskiyous in Northern California, but I heard the sound that sounds like an air raid, that one. And he heard it, and his eyes got big, and he looked at me and he pointed. And I said, well, of course, by this time, I'm pretty used to him being there. But even though I hadn't heard that sound before, and they hadn't come off with that one up there. And I looked at him and I said, yeah. I said, that fella, he's letting us know that he knows we're coming, or he's gathering the troops. We made it and we arrived to the spot. We get out. As soon as we got out, the trees we're always parked, trees not far. There was a grunt coming from the other side of the meadow, on the other side of the road, away from the tree. It was several hundred feet, I'd guess about 300 feet back. And and I checked that out on the YouTube later on after I got out of there. And it was gorilla. It sounded just like a freaking gorilla. Anyway, we heard that grunt. And he's not saying anything. We're silent. But he pointed and I looked. I said, yeah. I just shook my hand. And about a minute later, that was on the other side of this meadow we're looking at. And then on the other side of the meadow, the grunt came off again. And he said, I think something's encircling us. And I said, yeah, I do too. That's what you would think. It was in sequence. A grunt there, a little bit of grunt, like something's going this direction, and a grunt further down in the same direction going. And then about a minute later, there was a grunt behind us, I'm thinking, well, it crossed the road further down the access road. Now it's behind us on the left because a grunt there. About a minute later, there was a grunt behind us on the other side of us, behind us. And so that's 5 grunts. And it sounded just like something encircled us. And so this guy, he's not your typical fella. Most people wouldn't. That would have been enough. They'd wanted to get the hell out of there. But the scream would have done it before we got back in there. He was excited, and he's just looking around. And he's a big guy. He's like an old hillbilly or something. But he's got a good heart. And he's just excited, and he's looking around and stuff. Now I'm wondering what he's looking for. I'm leaning up against the car, and he sees a tree branch, a limb, and he says, "Hey, can I grab that and whack that tree?" I don't make any sounds, but he deserved it. I was more interested in him at this point than I was the Bigfoot. But I said, yeah, I said, plus he asked permission. Gosh, I don't get that much respect usually. It was pretty neat. So I said, yeah, take it. Go ahead and grab it and go ahead, do it. I said, I don't do it because I don't know what I'm conveying, but go ahead. He whacked it once. He whacked it twice. Then he whacked it the third time. And the third time he did it, those 5 grunts from those 5 positions came off at the same time. We were already surrounded. What do you think of that? How do you figure that one out?
I'm still here. Dude, this is nuts. Okay, I have a clarification question real quick. I don't want to distract you at all, but how long ago was this?
About 2 years ago.
2 years ago, Ronnie?
I couldn't get back in there. I would have continued doing what I was doing, but I had to go to Florida for a while. I ended up 7 months there, and that was the beginning of spring a couple of years ago. And then I got back here, and there was a fire going, so I couldn't get back in there. Then winter was coming, there was snow. Then the next year, a frickin' fire again. And so I haven't been able to get back in there. It's been blocked off. I did manage for a little while. One of the fires, I got back up in there, and I put a food bag up in there. I haven't been able to get back and check it out. And right now, it's still snow up in there and muddy, and I'm afraid I'll get stuck. It's a ways back in. So I haven't been able to get back up in there, but I did get up there for a little bit before having problems again. But because I was worried that the fire had taken this whole area out. I thought, oh, God, that'd be my luck. An established area with a family of these things, and it freaking destroyed. In fact, that's what everybody was saying. Fire workers, the guys are ahead of these fires or directing or whatever. Because I was asking around, they said, well, that's gone. It wasn't. I got up when it was calm down, and you get access to get back in there and stuff. Heck, the growth back in this area where these things was twice as thick, the undergrowth there. So it's even better. And I've seen deer there too. So I'm thinking that all that smoke and activity and everything, but they would have had to left. But whether they came back or not sure. But I got a feeling they probably would. And it hadn't been touched, so that was great. As soon as I get back up in there, I'm going to try to pursue it. Yeah, but it's only been a couple of years since I left on good terms.
Ronnie, can you share anything about where that area or the general location of that area is for context?
I don't want to share where that.
I get it. I totally get that, Ronnie. Can you at least share the state?
Oh, it's Oregon.
It's Oregon. Okay.
In fact, I'll tell you the city. Yeah, I can tell you that. It's not a city. It's a town. It's about 2 or 3 miles long. It's surrounded by mountains, and there's places.
Make sure to head over to the Patreon this week for 40 more minutes of my interview with Ronnie. There's more Ronnie and Dwayne stories. What happens when hunters get involved in that area? A police report that was given to Ronnie, and a sighting he took about the four-toed Bigfoot that just keep coming up on Bigfoot Society shows. Become a supporting member of the Bigfoot Society podcast by going to www.patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society and receive extra episodes and early ad-free episodes as well. If you've got a personal Bigfoot encounter you would like to submit for me to share on the podcast, please head on over to www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. There you'll find the Share Your Bigfoot Encounter form a little lower on the page, and please take a minute to share as many details as you can. Please state if the encounter is anonymous or what name you would like associated with the encounter. And as always, thanks for listening.